So, Jay Frasier, welcome to On the Job podcast. It's, as you know, the podcast that we started to talk about everything from labor and politics and everything related to Local 103. And kicking off the new year, I think it was important. A lot of people have reached out to me about bringing you on to talk about all the good stuff that the Sobriety group has been doing and the stuff that you've been doing to help members get clean, get sober, get healthy. And I think this is an important podcast to have and to hold, and I'm really glad and proud that you're here, brother. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm going to try not to cry during this, but I get emotional with this stuff. Regards on Struvel, Local 103 has had an AA meeting for the last 48 years, run by a 103 electrician. And I took it off from Pat D there, from the T, and Dick Kelleher. And those two guys were just holding it down. And it was an AA meeting at first. And be truthful, they would just show up on Sunday. They'd be down in the referral office. And they really wouldn't have anybody there. It'd just be them two. You know, they'd be playing cribbage. But they kept the door open in case anybody ever walked in off the street that needed help or a member or anybody. It was an AA meeting. And from there, they got older and they asked me to take it over. And one of the best things I think that's ever happened to me is taking that over. But to talk about this stuff right here, we got to go back to 2016. You know, I mean, you were president. You getting ready to run for business manager. You know, we ended up at a wake, a young kid. You know, I'm not going to say his name, and I'll try not to say names today, but you know, we both ended up in the parking lot, and we both had tears in our eyes. You know, young kid that needed some help that just didn't know where to go or who to turn to. And that's the thing I'm most proud of down here is that we changed that. You know, and I know I'm the face of it, and I'm the guy that answers the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
But I wouldn't be here if you didn't recognize the problem. And that's half the battle is recognizing the problem today and then setting out a plan to address that problem and then putting it into action. And that's what we did. You brought me on staff for this particular reason. And I don't know. I think we're hitting it out of the park.
Yeah.
You know, you see AA meetings. They used to be in church basements, and now they're popping up all across the country in union halls.
Yeah.
And that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
You know.
I remember that wake we were at.
Yeah.
I remember clear as day, and me and you getting outside and just looked at each other and said, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
And I remember it was like back to back. They were a week apart or 2 weeks apart. Two younger members. Yeah. One was apprentice, I think, and we were there again. And it was just like, "What the fuck?" And we just kind of talked a lot. We were talking a lot during those days. We still talk a lot, but during those days, we were planning on ways of making the local union better.
Yeah.
And we identified, you know, we made a list. We made a top 20 list of what things we thought could make the local union better. And this was one of the top ones. It was one of the most important ones. We didn't rank them, but this was one that we identified where we got to stop going to members' wakes. That members that we can help. We can help these members. They need help. They're crying for help, and they don't know where to go to get it.
Yeah, I remember that wake specifically because you know the young man's name was Eric, and I met him. I taught shop class over at the school.
Yep.
JATC. I would teach 2 nights a week and work in the field during the daytime. And every time I stopped my class, I'd let everybody know, hey, I'm an alcoholic and a nut job drug addict. You know what I mean? For 2 main reasons. One, it's a defense mechanism for me. If I see you at a union meeting or a political function, you know, you're not going to come up and offer me a drink. You know, so it's one is a defense for me. And the second is if somebody in that room needs help, you know, they know that they can come and knock on my door. Yeah. And they're going to get it. And that kid Eric did. You know, and I sponsored him for 3 years. He was doing great. He joined an AA group down near his house. He was going to a meeting, and then all of a sudden, you know, he got stuck on a second shift. You know, and he didn't get to that meeting, and his routine got broken, and he made one bad decision, and then we were at his wake. Yeah, you know, and that's how quick it can happen.
Yeah. So you talked about how you opened it up, and you said, "Hey, I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. Let's go in the Wayback Machine. let's
you
talk.
Sure? Okay.
Yeah. No. Let's seriously. Let's talk about your story, Jay, and what you've gone through, because I think I think members will be able to relate to what
Yeah.
you've been through and how it is possible to recover from that.
Yeah.
So let's go back to when you were a fucking teenager and ripping it up and what between from then to where you got sober. Let's talk about those times, you know?
It's funny. I actually grew up hating alcohol. Hated it. I grew up in an alcoholic home, my mother and my grandmother, and they were both alcoholics. I'd see two women that absolutely loved each other, and during the daytime, and at nighttime, if there was only a swig left in that bottle, you know, they were fighting over it. You know, two Irish alcoholic ladies, you know, and then they got into it, and I saw stuff that a kid shouldn't see. You know what I mean? It's just craziness. But I grew up hating it. And I'll tell you, the first time I ever had a drink, it was we had just moved into the Mystic Ave projects, and
Is that Somerville?
yeah,
Yep.
I grew up in East Somerville, and long story short, we ended up moving into the projects, and it was like a different part of the city, and I didn't know anybody in there, and like I said, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything like that. We're talking at the age of 13. I remember I would go down to East Somerville, and I'd hang out with my friends down there, and then at the end of the day, I'd walk home. And this one particular day, I was walking home, and I cut through the projects, the building called 45. And I didn't know that you shouldn't walk through that part of the projects, you know, and I got my basketball, and there was a kid there, and they were smoking dust, and they had a keg, and, like, I've never drank in my entire life, and this kid took my basketball away, and he was nuts. And to be God's honest truth, he's in jail right now doing 3 life terms. And he took my basketball away, and he made me do a 45-second keg stand. And they held me upside down, and they literally held a 45 to my head. And that was the first time. And I remember walking into the house, and my mother was there, and she realized I was drunk. And I went into the fridge, grabbed the Mountain Dew. I went into the cabinet, grabbed the cup. I put the cup back in the fridge. I put the Mountain Dew. She was like, "Are you drunk?" Like that. And when I told her they literally made me drink, I don't know if she still believes me to this day. But that was the first time I ever got drunk, and I hated it. I didn't like it. But the first time I ever took a drink on my own, it was after a freshman high school basketball game. And all the cheerleaders were on one side of the tracks, and all the basketball players were on the other side of the tracks. And I could never, ever talk to a girl. I would get all caught in my mouth. My knees would buckle. I'd get this rock in my stomach. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't
Most
have
other
any
young
of
boys
that.
in America.
Normal, right? But this one particular night, I don't know how we did it, but we ended up getting a case of Miller Genuine Draft. And I had 3 Miller
MGDs.
Genuine Drafts, right? And my eyebrows got a little heavy. You know, I got this little bit of a buzz, and you know, and I walked across the tracks, you know, and I ended up talking to this cheerleader, you know, and I ended up walking her home, and you know, we kissed on our porch, and it all good, no bad, you know what I mean? Like, that's all you had to show
Be a
me,
boss,
right?
right?
Yeah, you know, and so I couldn't wait to drink again, and that's what happened. We would drink every weekend, you know, and smoking weed, drinking, and it was all innocent, you know, and. But for the first time in my life, I realized, like, I get it, Ma, Graham, I get this now, you know what I mean? I grew up hating it, but once I got that experience and, like, hooking up with the cheerleader, you know, and her name was Tony Ann, and I hooked up with her, and she was my first girlfriend, you know, and I got that from booze. Booze has given me a ton of good stuff. At the end of my drinking, I didn't realize it was the very thing that was killing me. You know what I mean? It made me come out of myself. It made me feel normal. It took all the fear away. It did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was my first drink after a high school basketball game, right on the railroad tracks behind the Somerville High, and that was my first drink. Yeah, 15 years old. And to be God's honest truth, I'm a Somerville guy. You know, that's starting late, 15 over there. You know what I'm saying? And
So you had a lot of
but
catching
that
up
was
to,
my
lot of
first
catching up
drink.
to do.
Yeah, that was my first drink, and
Yep.
you know, and then it just progressed. It just jumped off and progressed. You know, I was good at basketball. I was playing JV. The seniors all took a liking to me. You know, and I remember, you know, they brought me to a Hawaiian party, like it was a dance. You know, and they gave me my first hit of mescaline. you know, and all I could remember was my face was hurting and my stomach was hurting because all I was doing was laughing and having a blast. All these people are walking around with Hawaiian shirts on, and it just looked absolutely ridiculous to me, and I just couldn't stop laughing. But that's how I got introduced to drugs. You know, the first drug I ever did besides smoking pot was mescaline. And then acid came after that, and I've done heroin. It just kept snowballing and snowballing, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do for me. You know,
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
So the fun stuff, like everybody's had a lot of times of having a lot of fun on alcohol or other or other substances, so to speak. But that's not rock bottom for you, right?
No.
That didn't
No.
want you to get sober. That wanted you to drink and party more, right?
Yeah. No, like I said, I think it saved my life. But at the end of it, you know, I was a 26-year-old kid, and I got introduced to cocaine. And when I first got sober, I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. I just wanted to stop doing coke. But at the end of my drinking, and I will say one name. I'll bring his name up, Brian Barton. You know,
Yeah, the best. Yeah.
I lived in a basement apartment in East Somerville, right on the Charlestown line, and I had an old metal door where you had to turn the two doorknobs simultaneously to get in. And drop ceiling in the apartment, you know, I'd start doing a couple lines here and there. After a little while, you get a little, we called it peeking and geeking. You know, you get a little paranoid. Somebody's coming. You just don't know who and when, but somebody's coming. And I would rip the Romex out of my ceiling light, and I would hook it up to the doorknobs. And I'd hook the neutral up to the bottom, hook the hot leg up to the second one. I'd wet the mat out front, you know, so when they do come, they're not getting in right away.
Putting your apprenticeship, everything you learned in your apprenticeship to work.
Yeah.
And your paranoia.
And to be true, I don't know how many times I electrocuted Brian Barton, but I've gotten him quite a few times. And that's where it was. Cocaine brought me to my knees a lot quicker, you know. If you look at AA today, the average age back then was, 40, 45, 50 years old. You know, because you had your whole life of drinking, and cocaine just brought me to my knees a lot quicker, and that's what I mean. I mean, my last run, I spent $14,000 in a week and a half. You know, I cardboarded up my windows. That's how I was telling time, for Christ's sakes. The birds chirping in the morning. You know, and people that have done cocaine understand the birds chirping. You know, because you're up in the crack of dawn, and the birds are starting to chirp, and you know, that's how I was telling time, and I just couldn't handle it. You know, it was I didn't want to be where I was. You know, there was this one time. You know, the other thing too is I always ended up naked in public places, in a blackout, right? And I mean it. This is my story. This is the craziest shit that you can think of. I was in the middle of it, and at the end of my drinking, I was working for Bent Electric, actually, non-union, and I had just hurt myself, so I was out on workman's comp. I was extending it a little bit longer than it probably should have been, where I pulling a workman's comp scam. So they stopped paying you, and they tried to get you to go back to work. Long story short, so I would I was at a party on Highland Ave. I maybe had $8 in my pocket, and it's summertime. It's nice out. It's still light out at 7:00, and one of my buddies comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, we raised $180." I said, "For what?" And he goes, "We don't think you can make it from here to your house naked." I said, "Absolutely, I can. Absolutely." And long story short, so and previously we got shit-faced, and a couple of buddies of mine had shaved my head when I passed out. I didn't look good like you, bald. I looked like a serial killer. I had patches all over the head, little nicks and cuts, and I looked like a serial killer. And so now I venture out on Highland Ave. Now, Highland Ave in Somerville is probably one of the main streets in Somerville. City Hall is on it. It was right across from City Hall and Somerville High School. So I don't have any money, and I want to drink, and I want to go to the liquor store. And so I said, "Yeah, absolutely, $180." Like, you bet. So I stripped down to everything, gave my clothes to a friend of mine, Steve, and the only thing I had on was a pair of Shell Toe Adidas. So now I'm not running. I'm walking along Highland Ave. People are beeping and waving, and I'm starting to get a little insecure. So now
It's a little chilly that night.
I pick up the pace a little bit, and the sun's just going down, but you could still see me. And what I didn't know was Boston Gas was out on strike, and there was a gas valve at McGrath Highway and Highland Ave. And Highland Ave comes into a 6-lane highway on McGrath Highway, and they had a state trooper parked there 24/7, so they couldn't shut the gas valve off. And I come barrel assing around the corner. I ended up on the hood of a state trooper's car, like literally landed on the hood of his car, and I take a step back. I got no pockets to put my hands in, so I'm just sitting there covering my package, and all of a sudden, he's just looking at me, and I stood there for about 10 seconds. 10 seconds in front of a state trooper, stark naked, on McGrath Highway. It's a long time.
How old were you?
Geez, I gotta say, that was close to the end. I was probably about 25.
Yeah.
25, and so you're standing there in front of a state trooper, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. That's just to tell you, like, hey, 10 seconds is a long time. And the only thing I could come up with is that guy didn't get out of the car. I don't think he wanted to touch me. You know what I mean? And long story short, I got smart. So I jumped onto the tracks, and I made it halfway to my house, and then I snuck up the back road. But I get to my house, and there's literally 100 people sitting outside my house waiting for me to come down Highland Ave. My landlord is out, and him and his wife are out on the porch, and they're trying to figure out why 100 people are circling their house at this moment right now. And all of a sudden, I come barrel-assing around the corner, and I look up, and I go, don't worry about it, Peter. I got it all under control. And, and the kid that had my clothes and my keys to my house, he was in a fight, right? So he's fighting with some other kid from some part of the city that we didn't get along with. So I'm over there, and I'm breaking up a fight because I want to get my clothes and my keys. And what happened was I got my clothes and my keys. I broke up the fight, went to the house. I got dressed, snuck out the back door. Everybody's outside waiting for me. I hit up to the liquor store, and I went up, and I got a suitcase of Bud, and I got a gallon of Concord grape wine. It was a 26-year-old wino. And then I got a pint of Jameson. And I brought it home, stashed it. Then we all went out to Sissy K's down at Faneuil Hall, and had a blast. I remember walking in and into Sissy K's, walked right up to the bar. I got $180 in my pocket, well, 150, whatever, after I bought what I bought at the liquor store. And this girl sits down beside me. She's like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, excellent. She goes, can I buy you a drink? I go, absolutely. And she sits down, and we're talking, and next thing you know, we're out on the dance floor, and she's telling me that she just got this promotion, and I'm like, oh, fantastic, cool, like that. And she goes, you want another drink? I was like, absolutely. I'm not even spending any money. This is awesome, right? And we get back to the bar, and she buys me another drink, and she literally said to me, she goes, oh, I'm being rude. I'm talking about the promotion. I just go, what do you do for a living? Now, I'm an electrician working for Bent Electric, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a great career, and long story short, I looked at this woman and told her, I'm a cameraman for Channel 7. I bring Harvey Leonard into your bedroom every night. And I didn't know why I was lying at the time, but after you get sober and you start looking at yourself and you start to figure all this stuff out, why you did this, why you did that, I just didn't like who I was, I didn't like who I was. I would compare my insides to your outsides, and I'd lose every time. Mm-hmm. I'd feel like shit on the inside. You look good. What's wrong with me? Right. And I didn't figure all that stuff out. And, after that, we...
But that wasn't rock bottom for you, was it?
No. That was getting close to it. Okay. I was getting close to the rock bottom. Yeah. But we ended up outside. I hit the sausage cart. Got into a fight with some Charlestown guys, and ended up home. Very next day was a Sunday, and they had this stickball tournament for a guy that passed away in the neighborhood. It was a huge thing. They'd have like 15 kegs. I mean, everybody from the whole city would come down. The cops would shut off streets for us. It was a pretty big deal, and everybody went to it, And I remember my phone ringing, people knocking on my door. And I had just cracked the Concord grape wine, and I'd look in the mirror and I'd be crying. Why can't I can't leave the house? And there was nothing normal about the way I was drinking. And that was leading up to the end. And the end for me, I ended up in a basement apartment in Mission Hill. There was Well, first off, I got shut off from, when you're getting shut off from drug dealers in Charlestown and Somerville, it's a pretty good chance that, like, something's wrong. And the two drug dealers that I went to, they just said, Jay, you're on a tear. You know, I've been up for probably 6 days, and I'm not contributing and you killing yourself. I'm done. I love you, kid, but no more, you're done. And they shut me off. So I ended up in the old combat zone. Actually, it was a combat zone back then.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a gentleman on the corner, you know, and I said to him, hey, where can we get the shit? And he's like, you spot me some? And I was like, get in. And he brought me to a basement apartment in Mission Hill. And I'll never forget, it was all black people. I was the only white guy there. And, you know, about 15 people sitting around in a circle on crates, you know, smoking crack. And guy behind the curtain that was cooking it, the owner of the place, you know, he came out and he was pretty upset with the dude that brought me. You know, I mean, what are you bringing this white guy to my house right now for? He didn't know if I was a cop or not or anything. And long story short, you know, he comes walking up to me. He goes, how do I know you? And he's got a gun in his hand. He's got a 9mm in his hand. And, you know, and I reached into my pocket, and everybody got real jumpy. I was like, hey, relax. I went in with 2 fingers, and I had $400, and I had it in between my fingers. And the guy rubbed the gun up and down each side of my face and then left it on my chin. And I took the $400 and I threw it on a crate. And then I pulled my head back, and I says, either blow my head off or let me get high, dude. And I put my mouth on the gun. And I'll never forget it. I can remember the chattering, the gun shaking off my teeth. And his eyes got really big, white, you know, and he's like, fuck, we got a crazy white guy here. He goes, sit down over there. Picked up the $400. I sat there for a couple of days, you know, and that was the bottom for me. And
Jesus, yeah.
I came out, my car wouldn't start. I left the lights on. And so now I'm stranded there. To this day, I still don't know how I got home, but what I do remember is little kids walking by me as I was sitting on the curb, crying, and little kids going to school. And, like, my mother didn't raise me to end up where I was. You know, and that's what I mean. I get emotional at that.
Yeah. It's
at
emotional.
That, you know,
It is
and,
emotional.
But that was the end. You know, and a couple of weeks later, you know, I got honest with my mother. My mother ended up getting sober a long time before me, and I kind of knew that it worked and da-da-da-da-da. And, like, she didn't hear from me for a few days, so she ended up banging on my door.
Yep.
And, you know, and she came in, and I remember just getting honest with her, and I remember hitting my knees and just hugging her hips, going, I can't stop drinking. And I didn't have the guts to tell her how much cocaine I was doing. She was old school. She would have smacked me around a little bit. But, you know, she told me about a group right around the corner from my house. It was called the Praying Hands. And I walked in there that Wednesday night, and then that's where my story took off, you know. And I ran into some solid guys that just showed me the way. And that's how my path took off.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. That's some crazy stories here. We're lucky you're still here.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We're lucky you're still here.
I think it's all part of the plan.
Yeah.
It's all part of the plan. It really is.
Yeah, you mentioned Brian, who's a great friend and had a similar path. And I look back and at you guys and admire you guys so much for overcoming being so, you know, down and out and destitute and, you know, hung up on what was holding you down.
Yeah.
I just admire you guys so much. And now what you guys both, and when we're talking to you in particular, we'll get Brian in here at some point too.
Yeah, he just celebrated 24 years.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Amazing. And, you know, what you're doing for other people now, you know, someone took you under their wing and helped you get sober. And now talk about paying it forward or paying it back. You are helping so many people. And I don't even know if you know it or not. I think you do. But just you're able to tell stories like this and helping people find sobriety.
Yeah.
Jay, you know, answering, we talked about it in the past too, you know, answering that call at 3 a.m. from a wife or a kid. My husband's fucked up. My dad's fucked up. We need help. Can you come help? And I know I've seen you first thing in the morning in here, and you look like you've been up all night.
Yeah.
I'm like, you all right? And you'll say, yep, I had to go take care of something. I know what that means when you tell me that.
Yeah.
And it's, you do what you got to do. Absolutely.
That was one of the first things that were taught to me, and that's what we're talking about here on Sunday mornings. Is once you catch this buzz of being sober,
Yep.
you got the only requirement is you got to give it back. You got to give it to somebody that's coming behind you. And that's the secret of the game around here. I got really, I used to say lucky, and I don't mean to say lucky because I think it was part of the plan. You know, AA, when you first get sober, like you're in a fog. You don't understand what's going on. You're full of fear. You're full of anger. You know, all this stuff. I can't drink anymore. And long story short, you know, I had some awesome guys put in my life. You know, there was a couple of guys from Charlestown. And I remember one of my first meetings. It was a noontime meeting, you know, St. Catherine's in Charlestown. And I go in there, and I don't really have a clue on what they're talking about. I don't get it. It sounded like Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. Don't drink. Okay.
Charlie Brown's
And
mother.
I remember coming outside that meeting, and I light a cigarette, and there's this old timer with a scally cap, and he's smoking a cigar, and he's sitting on a half wall. And he goes, "How you doing, kid?" And I go, I really didn't answer him. I just shrugged like that. And he goes, "Did you get anything out of the meeting?" And I was like, "No, not really." I said, "I don't know. I don't even know if I fucking belong here." And he goes, "Sit down for a second." And I sat down and introduced himself. And he looks across the street and he goes, "See that truck over there?" I said, "Yeah, it's an Armored car, right?" And he goes, "See the double axle on the back, 4 tires on the back, 4 tires on the front?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You know what that means?" I go, "No. It's a change car. Never whack a change car, kid. It's a waste of time." Understand what I'm saying? And I went, "Cool." Right? And like he got me. He, like, I don't know about you, but in my neighborhood, you know, when we're playing cops and robbers, no one wanted to be the cops. We always wanted to be the robbers. And he intrigued me. And so, like, I wanted to come back to that meeting the next day and see this guy and talk to him. And that's what happened. You know, I ended up hooking up with a guy named Frenchie. You know, he looked like Benjamin Franklin. He wore suspenders, no pants, bald on the top, and long white hair. And his buddy was Eddie G. You know, and I jumped in the backseat of their car, and we hit meetings all over the place. And I just followed these guys.
They were guys that were sober?
These guys, these guys were sober a long time, and then
Yep.
30 years sober at the time, and they got me at like 2 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like brand new, and you know, AA can be a confusing place when you first get there. And what I mean by that is, like, I'll give you an example. Like, Praying Hands Group, they were members of that. So I'm sitting outside the meeting. They pull up early. They get in there early, set up the hall, make the coffee. And I'm sitting out there, and I got this face on, you know, and I'm like, fuck, man, I'm 26 years old. Life's over. This sucks. I got to hang out with all old guys for the rest of my fucking life. And then Frenchie walks by, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Hey, what's the matter?" I said, "I don't know, man. I think I dived into this shit a little too soon. You know, And he just puts his hands on my shoulders, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Just hold on, kid.
Yeah.
Just hold on." Now, he goes in. I got to go in and make the coffee. He goes in. Eddie G comes walking up the alleyway. Just parked the car. He looks at me and goes, "What's the matter, kid?" All right. And I said the same exact thing. I think I dived into this AA shit too soon, man. You know what I mean? I don't know if I fucking belong here. And he puts his hands on my shoulders, and he goes, "Just let go. Just let go." So in a matter of 30 seconds, the two guys I trust the most in the world, one's telling me to hold on, the other one's telling me to let go. It's like, what the fuck am I doing here, right? So I held on with one hand, and I let go with the other. Yeah. You know, and then and then that night, that particular night, that's when my life changed. And what I mean by that is Frenchie didn't smoke, but he would come out, and he'd just mingle around the crowd and talk to guys like me. And he comes walking over to me, and he goes, "Hey." And I go, "What?" He goes, "You know, you're going to meetings every night. You know, you're doing good. You're not drinking." He goes, "But you need to step it up a little bit." And I go, what do you mean?" And he goes, "What's your concept of God?" And I said, "To be truthful, Francie, I don't really have a concept of God." I said, "I've never really thought about him." I says, "You know, if when I die, if there is a heaven or a hell, I'll get up there. He'll either give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down." And then all of a sudden, he goes, "Hey, see that tree over there?" And I says, "Yeah. It's a weeping willow tree." And he goes, "Could you make that?" And I went, "Oh, I can't make that. What the fuck are you talking about, man?" And then all of a sudden, a flash of lightning went across the sky. There was no rain, no nothing. He goes, "Did you see that?" I was like, I'm a fresh punk now, 26. I was like, "Yeah, Frenchie, I saw it. You know, the lightning. Come on, what's the point of it? What are you getting at?" And he goes, "Can you make that?" And then back then, like, they had a sober wall down Revere Beach. And like, people would go to it after the meeting, and they'd continue the meeting. And he goes, "I want you to go down the wall tonight." And he goes, "I want you to watch the waves come in." And I went, yeah. And then asked myself if I can make that. I said, "Will you get to the fucking point, man?" Right? And he looked at me, and he goes, me and you can't make that. He goes, but something did. And he goes, what I call it is the spirit of the universe. You know, and he was an old Indian type guy. And from this day on, I kind of like that concept. And I've always gone with that. You know, because like, I don't know, my first experience with like God, and God is a big thing when you first come into AA. You hear God everywhere, right? So if you have a problem with God, which most alcoholics and drug addicts do when they first get there, you know, they blame God a lot. And long story short, you know, what happened to me was, you know, I was in 4th grade, you know, and I'll never forget the lunch aide at the school would give me an extra breakfast and everything. She would feel bad for me. She knew we didn't have much, and she'd give me an extra lunch. And her husband was a big newspaper guy in the city of Somerville. So next thing I know, she's got me a job, and it's outside St. Anne's, the same church that I'm going to the praying hands at. It's all like connected in a strange way. So like he sets me up with I'm selling papers outside the church. Father Monsignor Hogan comes out, you know, and he's got the big white hat on, the white robe, and you know, I guess I set up in the wrong position like that. So he grabs me, kicks me in the ass, and throws me over into the corner and goes, "Set up over there." You know, and instantly I picked up a rock and I threw it at the guy. You know, so I lost the newspaper job. And then very next couple of weeks, I'm in 4th grade, and long story short, I have to go to, I don't know, Sunday school or whatever it is to get your first communion. And just the nuns, man, they were just mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, religion's a tough sell sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, it is, you know. So my first experience with the Catholic religion was like not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These people scared me.
Yeah.
So
And I know, like, you know, a lot of people have trust issues with God or with their religion, their own faith.
yeah,
And I'm not saying anything about AA. AA saved millions of people, you know, throughout time, and it's a great organization. But like you said, you just couldn't warm up to it. It was kind of you couldn't get there with the God thing. You couldn't get there with the AA thing. So I mean, your group that you do here on Sunday mornings, it's not AA, and it's not church. It's something completely different.
Yeah.
And people are like, it's helping people.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on? What are you guys doing that's different, you know?
Yeah, like AA would have a heart attack if they saw some of the shit that we do here on Sunday.
Yeah, but it's not AA,
you know what I mean?
so
right.
right.
But we run it on the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, okay.
But we call it a sobriety group. Like we have a member that wouldn't shut up, right? So came up with the idea of getting a gong, right? We have 2 rules in the room, right? If you hear the gong, you have to shut the fuck up. That's it. End of conversation, right? And we don't care if you're in a fight. You can continue the fight, but you can't talk during the fight. If the fucking gong is going off, that's it. You're done. And then the second one was giving it back to a brother or a sister.
Yeah.
And like,
how often during the meetings do you fire off the gong? Is it a couple
in
times
the beginning?
a meeting?
In the beginning, that was going off pretty often. You know, it just got brought to my attention that we haven't heard the gong in a while.
Yeah.
And that's because everybody's getting better.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting better, and you know, but it's funny, you know. I don't know how to describe it. AA, they have certain like rules, like in an open discussion, you can't crosstalk. Now, say Louis, you had an issue, and you know, the courts, they won't let you see your kid. Your wife's not letting you see your kid. Da da da. Long story short. Now, if there's somebody in that room that has made it through the same situation that you're going through, I expect that member to raise his hand and go, "Hey, this is where I was. This is what I did, and this is where I'm at now." Right, and so you get a true discussion. And sometimes it gets heated. You know, sometimes it gets really heated. Sometimes you're laughing your ass off in the group. Sometimes it's emotional. You know, you know, the last couple of weeks has been a really, really powerful meeting. You know, we just had a member celebrate a year. You know, last Christmas, you know, he was at a breakfast joint with his kid, giving him his toys at a breakfast joint with a court officer there. You know, this year, he was in his own apartment, giving that kid the Christmas gifts there. I mean, and that's where I say I could break down.
That is emotional shit. That's awesome.
And I mean, it's amazing. And don't get me wrong. Like, I'll give you another perfect example. You know, I've gone to court with some of these guys. You know, you sit there, and I'm in a nice suit, and you know, and the judge goes, "Who are you?" And I get to say I'm the director of the recovery program at Local 103. And believe it or not, it carries some weight. You know, and I remember I remember this one particular member, and
People know.
yeah,
People know.
yeah, and
You know.
and I'm sitting there, and I'll never forget it. The wife is like staring at me. She wants to kill me. You know what I mean? And this kid is he just celebrated a year. He's killing it. He's doing everything right. And long story short, you know, at the end of it, he did. He got his visitation rights back, and within 2 months, he had full custody. Right? He's a steward on a job site now. You know, and he's got full custody. And it's all because he didn't pick up a drink. Came down here on Sunday mornings, and like literally, I was at Morning Assistance having a conversation with John Christian about this particular member, and John looked at me and says, "I don't know. We might be dealing with wet brain, and what wet brain is when a person drinks so much that it affects your brain that you can't come back from." You know, and I couldn't settle for that, and we didn't. And now, and the guy turns his whole entire life around.
Yeah.
And that's really one of the success stories, you know.
And it's not just alcohol in your meeting, right?
No,
I mean,
no.
Alcoholics
That's
Anonymous.
that's
it's
the
just
other thing.
alcohol, right? You guys have focused on.
I mean, it's changed a little bit
Yeah.
here and there. You know, when I first got sober, you couldn't mention drugs in AA.
Right.
You'd get screamed at, you get thrown.
But now out there, it's a combination. It's everything.
There is no more
Throw it-
pure
right,
alcoholics
right.
out there. There isn't. You know,
So that's why your meeting is so
it's
is works so much. Maybe it's because you got people with hey, I got alcohol issues, but I'm also popping
100%.
pills. I'm also smoking weed. I'm also doing some shit I shouldn't be doing.
100%,
Yeah.
100%, and that's where it takes off. You know, you get to come into that room and you just get to raise your hand and just let it out, whatever
Yeah.
it is. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And whether it's drugs, whether it's booze, whether you're eating too much.
Yeah.
We don't. I mean, if
Yeah.
there's a member of Logo 103 and he has a eating disorder, come on down. Welcome.
Yeah.
Because you know what?
Yeah.
We got a program that plugs into anything.
Yeah.
Not just booze
Yeah,
and
I'm
drugs.
thinking people with just overwhelming stress because they're going through a divorce and dealing with kid issues. We have more members that deal. Every other person in this membership has been through a tough divorce or having an issue with their kids or their family.
No, and so that's not only like the fantastic thing about it is, right? It's real easy. All I got to do is just get them in the room, right? Because let's follow this, right? If you go to AA and you send an electrician to AA sitting in the front row, he may be sitting next to a doctor or a lawyer. You know, he has nothing in common with these two gentlemen.
Right.
Nothing. Unless that doctor needed an electrician or that electrician needed a doctor, these two are not going to meet in regular day life, right? So you bring them into here. We got a room full of electricians. Everybody wakes up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
They put on work boots. They deal with traffic. Parking is insane
right.
right now. Everybody is ready, right? Or you're dealing with an angry foreman, a barker that screams at, you know, a safety guy that's breaking your balls on the stupidest things, da-da-da. Or jobs coming down. Anxiety's going up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just identify with they got so much in common just in the
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
So now the problem gets them in the room. And what we talk about on every Sunday is the solution that keeps them there. And that's really the magic. You know, that's the magic. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I wake up every morning and I decide to turn my will over to that spirit of the universe that I call. I go, Jaws, man, whatever you got in store for me today, just give me the strength to get through it. That's my prayer. That's what I say every morning. Now, I always take my will back. I'm human. I screw up all the time. Take my will back. I'll give you a perfect example as today. I pull up to the light, right? I get there. There's a guy in front of me on his phone, right? Light's green. I'm sitting there waiting for him to go, right? You can tell he's on his phone, probably on Facebook, right? And then all of a sudden, the light turns yellow. And this guy flies through the light. Now I'm stuck there, right? Now I got two ways I can handle this. I can blow through that light, catch up to him, and let him know how happy I am with him. Or I could sit there and go, hey, God didn't want me on Route 3 at 7:05 this morning. He wanted me on 7:10, right? And when I live like that, my life is so much easier. And that's all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to share that experience with members. Hey, just turn it over, man.
Yeah.
Right? You go to AA, right? Like 75% of the people don't even know what turn it over means. They just said it to you when you came into the door. Now I'm saying it to you when I came through.
Yeah.
The fact, they're right. There's 12 principles to live by in life, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's what we're learning on Sunday morning. It's amazing.
I get a lot of people, and it's for the last 10 years, whether it's people in the city, people in the local, and now it's even more so. People national always coming up to me. They want me to introduce them to Jay Frasier from Local 103.
It's crazy in itself.
It's awesome. But, so like you're building this network of people that recognize help is needed with their friends and their family and their members, and they want to talk to you about establishing a new program or just a new network of in their little worlds outside of Local 103. Not everybody can come to Local 103, but for Local 103 wise, there's another guy that used to roam these halls that is really a living legend and really deserves a lot of credit on getting Local 103 members sober.
Yeah.
And that's the late great, Chuck Monahan.
Yeah.
Who's you're doing what he did. He did what you're doing. It's amazing. How did Chuck affect what you do? And
well, Chuck, it's anytime a member needed help, he was there. The guy helped more people than Red Cross. There's just no other way around it.
Yeah.
I actually had a member come up to me, an older member, and actually talk about this like that. And he actually called me a Chucky Monahan on steroids.
That's probably the best compliment you could ever get in your whole life.
As far as I was concerned, that was the greatest thing you could
Just
say
made
to
my
me.
day, kid.
Absolutely. And Chucky wasn't one of us.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop him from helping, like member after member.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have to be a drug or an AA thing either. He'd help you. He'd help you no matter what. Chuck, I stole a car. I got to hide it. He'd help you hide the freaking thing. You know what I mean?
A fantastic story. I was actually putting the pole lights up out in the parking lot, and I was sitting there, and it's about 6:30 in the morning. I'm sitting there drinking my coffee. We start at 7, and I get out of my truck at 7, and at 7:05, member comes rolling in, and bumpers half ripped off. The side of the car is all scraped up. He even had a flat tire. And he parks right in the middle of the Union Hall. And I'm sitting there going, look at this guy, right? And then all of a sudden, he gets out, and he staggers into the school. All of a sudden, a Boston police car comes strolling in, circles the car, parks at the back of it. You could tell they were running the plate. They knew exactly something had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing I know, Jimmy O'Connell comes out of the school, looks at the cops, goes back in. Next thing I know, Chucky comes out, looks at them, goes back in. Cops just circle the car again and then drive out of the parking lot. Chucky made a call and took care of that member, but not just with the police. He had that guy over at Modern Assistance by 8 o'clock in the morning. There was a guy named Paul McDevitt that ran and started Modern Assistance.
Yeah, with Chucky's assistance. I mean,
Chucky was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And they were really close, and they just worked together.
Yeah.
So when Chucky would run into a guy like me that was out there drinking or getting high or whatever the hell the case, all he did was take him and put him over here in front of Paul McDevitt. And Paul McDevitt, that guy helped more people than Red Cross Hospital. They were a fantastic team. And today, now, I'm that team.
Yeah, it's more
with John Christian.
Yeah, the MAP membership. What is it? Assistance program.
No.
And BAP Brotherhood Assistance Program. It's it still exists. It's still there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember BAP.
I remember BAP. I mean? Yeah, Brotherhood Assistance Program, and it's kind of morphed into what you're kind of running today.
Yeah.
And you've taken all those lessons that Chucky had. You've taken all those lessons from Paul McDevitt, and now you and John Christian and others. Are doing great work.
Yeah, they got a team over there, 20 counselors, and it's 24/7.
Yeah, and again, it's not just alcohol and drugs. It's
a lot of mental health right now.
Yeah, mental health.
Mental health is the next big crisis that's coming.
It's not coming. It's here.
100%, 100%, and it's scary because this country's not set up for it.
No,
that's why we got to take care of our own.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to lose my shit here, but. A couple of years ago, there was a 2-week period where we lost 3 members, and I don't know. There was one kid that came to the union meeting, not an alcoholic, not a drug addict, nothing. Just came up to me at the sobriety table, and he goes, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Hey, I'm being harassed on the job." I was like, "Hey, let's go talk in my office." We sat down, and he didn't want to tell me who was bothering him, and. And I didn't push it. I didn't force it. And I says, look, no one should be harassed on the job site. This is my job to make sure it doesn't happen. I said, here's my cell phone number. I said, I want you to call me every couple of days. Let's handle this. And that kid, he would call me once a week. And long story short, he called me on a Saturday. And I was doing the dishes. I'll never forget it. And, you know, I picked up
Jay
the phone.
Frasier does the dishes.
I know, yeah.
Ladies.
Yeah. And
Darlene, is this true?
yeah. And I'm doing the dishes, and I pick up the phone, and I'm talking to him, and you could just tell he's down.
Yeah.
Something's not right. Da 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 da. And he had just organized in 3 years, and he's working for one of our bigger contractors, you know. And at the end of the conversation, I literally I pointed out all the benefits that he had going on, you know. I said, you got into the best local in the country. You got the best job. You're working for one of our bigger shops. He was an Italian kid, olive complex, a good-looking kid. I says, good-looking kid like that. And I even said to him, I says, tell me you got a big giant, you know, like that. And yeah, he did exactly what you did. He started laughing, you know, and I hung up with him. And within a half hour, he hung himself.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and
I
like
know.
that does
I
something.
I remember. Yep.
That does something to your mental. Like, what did I say to that? You know, and then a few days later, you know, we had a member of the sobriety group. You know, his unemployment ran out. He was doing bag work with another member. You know, and he didn't make the Sunday morning for 3 weeks because he was the guy who was doing bag work with was doing it on Saturdays and Sundays, and he made one bad decision. You know, he thought he was buying a perk, one Percocet,
Oh man.
you know, and it was laced with fentanyl, and then his mom found him on the couch, you know, and I got that phone call, and after the kid hanging himself and the overdose, and we had another group member that just couldn't get it, you know, it was just dark, you know, just dark, you know, it just couldn't grab it, couldn't get anything, and, you know, he reached out to his mother on the phone, and she's got me on the other line, and we're trying to figure out where he's at. He rented a hotel room and wouldn't tell anybody where he's at. And just said, yeah, I got a package from Lynn. I know it's hot, and I just can't live like this anymore. And you heard him snort it, and you heard him hit the ground, and, you know, we didn't even know where he was, you know, and that does, you know, that does a number on you.
Oh man.
You know, and I ended up PTSD. It's real, you know, and I remember a few days later, you know, I'd be just driving down the street, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'd just start bawling, crying, and I mean snots, I mean really crying, not being able to control it, and not knowing what the hell was going on, and because nothing would pop into my head, no specific thought. It was just, I don't know, it was just hot. And it was a Wednesday. I'll never forget it. You know, I waited for my wife to get up, go to work. I waited for the kids to go to school, and I didn't even want to get out of bed. The only reason I did that day was to let the dog out, and when I got down to the kitchen, I just melted. You know, I fell into I sat down on the corner of the kitchen, and I just started crying, and I couldn't stop. And I sat there for a couple of hours, Lou. You know, and to be truthful, I had my phone open, and I had John Christensen's contact there, and it took me over 2 hours, you know, to hit that button. And then when I hit the button, you know, he couldn't even understand what I was saying. I was crying so hard, I was afraid my phone was going to ring. I was afraid my phone was going to ring. And that guy ended up in my kitchen within an hour. You know, and he got me in to talk to somebody that knew what I was going through, and it turned out that I wasn't sleeping. You know, I haven't slept all since these deaths started.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't sleep. If I was getting an hour a night, I was lucky. You know, I wasn't eating. You know, I was just drinking coffee and smoking butts at that time because I started smoking again, and he got me where I needed to be. It was a New England medical group, and I ended up talking to a guy for a few weeks, and you know, and then I did some training, you know, on how to shut things off and how to turn them on, and you know, I'm not a professional at this, you know, and I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm learning different things. Yeah, and that's a big deal. But just having John Christian, you know, like that, end up in my kitchen.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you beat that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know what's awesome, which I know we talked about Chucky and back in those days, how things were different. You know, whether it was drugs or whether it was alcohol, it used to be this stigma that you were less than and you didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And it was always, I think it was anonymous because it was over here and it's not put it front and center.
Yeah.
And now I think because of guys like you, because of guys like John Christian.
It's cool to be sober.
You guys, and you guys have taken the stigma out of it, and now it's like, hey, I need to talk to Jay Frasier about getting one of them groups set up, because now it's cool to be sober, and let's get some guys sober. And what you're doing, I've seen overflow at the international level of the IBEW.
Yeah, I was going to bring
and now you go to conferences, and what's going on at these conferences, Jay?
You have President Cooper come to the safety conference in Milwaukee this year, get up there and talk about alcoholism, drug addiction, and mental health. And that was huge. Because look at what's happened here. You're at the top, and it trickles down, right? You identify the problem, put a plan in place, and then you put that plan into action.
Yep.
And that's exactly what's happened in the international now.
Yeah.
Once Cooper got up there, it was like it just like set off a relief valve.
Yep.
Where like, oh, hey, we can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you think about it, right, all the old school, old guys, they drank. They didn't want to look at this. That's like with Chucky, and like they didn't really take a good look at what's going on. They just shuffle you all over the modern assistant. Hey, we'll take care of it over there.
Yep.
Now, like I said, we're taking care of it in-house, and with President Cooper just hitting it off like he did at the safety conference, just like opened so many doors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know that President Cooper really believes in this.
Yeah.
And really hits home with him, and he wants to help brothers and sisters get the help they need. And I know he's recruited you and a couple others around the country to come to membership development, to come to the construction conference and some of the other conferences, to start these programs at the conference before it starts, first thing in the morning, having these sobriety group meetings.
Yeah,
it's really
cool.
catching on.
I've made some really, really good friends across this country.
Yeah.
And I'll be truthful, there's a group of us that are from LA to Milwaukee, all over the place. And we have a meeting every Saturday morning. We have a Zoom meeting. And we get on there, and I love, I'm a ball buster. We have a blast, and there's all kinds of lengths of sobriety. There's one guy named Kurt, and he's got 47 years. He's a member of 292, and then the business manager at 292. It's like I've known these guys.
Yeah, awesome crew, yeah.
Awesome crew, right? And, there's a picture of us in my office. I walk in, and that's one of the two things that I see first thing out of the morning, and every morning. And it's just the relationships that we built. It's like we've known each other our entire lives.
Yeah.
It's just that connection.
It's awesome.
It's hard to explain. But the other thing too is that what I walk into, and I saw you looking at it the other day, is the obituary board. I got an obituary board and that's the first thing I look at, and and that's where like, not today, motherfucker.
Yep.
That's where that saying come up. We have one prayer in our sobriety group, right? It's not today, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And we got it's amazing. But the goal is to not put anybody on that fucking board.
Yep.
And
I know the National Safety Council.
Well,
you mentioned where President Cooper was there and spoke about mental health and drug addiction and alcoholism front and center in the IBEW, right? Because he recognizes it's a problem, and the first thing of fixing a problem is recognizing it, and he's put actions into place with guys like you and others to make sure our members are getting the help they need. But the National Safety Council, the biggest
safety
organization
in the world,
the biggest there is, recognized Local 103 for the work in sobriety, and not because of me or because of anybody else. It's because of you and the team on the safety committee that are doing the work on Sunday mornings, and at 3:00 in the morning when that phone rings, answering that call. That's the work that's being done. People are taking notice because you guys are making a difference out there.
Yeah,
and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, they gave us the most prestigious award they give out. It's the first time any trade union has ever gotten it. I mean, this is the first. Yeah. All right, so let's just look at it.
It's
this
in the
way,
business
right?
manager's office.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Green Cross Award.
I mean, we are the very first sobriety group in all of organized labor. Anywhere.
Yep.
And that started right here in Boston, Local 103. I'm fucking proud of that.
Yeah, you should be fucking proud, dude.
Huge.
Keith Prendergrass, too.
Yeah,
big deal on the safety council. Has been there for years, and he came in my office and says, "You don't have any idea how big a deal this is."
Yeah.
I didn't really know that active in the safety council or what the Green Cross Award was, but he was like, "This is the Oscar for safety, and it's being awarded to Local 103." And I think we're going up against like Mass General Hospital and some
Children's
other Children's Hospital.
Hospital.
We beat out Children's Hospital for the work we're doing on sobriety, and It's like, that's when it kind of dawned on me. He's like, sit me down, grab me by the shoulder, and says, you have no idea how big the deal this is.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I know they came to town. They did a big video for their promotional stuff.
Yeah.
And it's great. And I think I was telling you earlier, good brother, Chris Wagner from the 7th District.
Yep.
He's the vice president of the 7th District, which is the southwestern part of the United States. He saw you speak at the National Safety Council, and he's like, I have to get Jay Frasier to come to my progress meeting and talk
sounds
about
so weird to me. You know what I mean?
Right?
It really
you ain't
does.
kidding. You ain't kidding. No, but I got to have Jay Frasier come to my my progress meeting and talk about how local unions can start sobriety groups, and we're making that connection, and it's just really spreading the love, and it's helping people.
Yeah.
And I know we get down when we lose somebody over it, but the amount of people we're helping now it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's hard to measure the success.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah, Sunday
it's
mornings.
easy- It's easy to measure the losses.
Of course, yeah.
But when you come in here on a Sunday morning and you see 50 guys and sitting in a room and drinking coffee, breaking each other's balls, eating donuts, and just hamming it up, and throwing it out there. And I don't want to say just guys. We got women that come there. You know, my wife comes every Sunday morning. She's known as the cake lady. Because once you, if you get a year or 2 years or whatever, we get a cake, and we put a picture on that cake, and we let the member pick out whatever picture you want on the cake. And I got to tell you, we go to BJ's, and the ladies at BJ's are so excited, right? They're
First
like,
name basis with the cake lady at BJ's.
Right? It's funny because some of these pictures are a little off the wall, and it's just fantastic. It really is. But to jump back with the National Safety Council, they just reached out, and I don't know, they got a grant, and they want to start a program, and they want to mimic what we're doing here at Local 103, and they want to put it in like a progressive step way to where you can plug it in to any place, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That's more than cool. That's freaking awesome, man.
I mean, like you said, it's the largest safety organization in the world.
Yeah, it's like we were saying earlier. Sobriety and getting clean and sober isn't in the shadows anymore. It's front and center.
You know why?
You know what I mean?
Because everybody's been affected.
Touches everybody, right?
I used to go to a job site or speak at a conference, and I'd say, "Hey, how many people here have lost someone they know from an overdose? Raise your hand."
Dude, it's like cancer.
I
Everybody relates.
I don't even do it anymore.
Right? Everybody relates. It's like cancer.
I should say, who hasn't lost somebody? Raise your hand in the room, and that's what I mean. And that's the good part of it. And it sounds crazy when I say that's the good part of it, but that's also the stigma part of it. It's taking the stigma away from it because everybody's affected.
There's no shame in it.
You know what I mean?
You shouldn't be ashamed.
And this is one of the points I wanted to get across, and it's about education, right? Like with our members, what our main purpose is educate. The construction workers, they go to work every day. They're in a dangerous job. They're going to end up maybe in the emergency room, a broken wrist, whatever.
Dude, we talk about how fucking great this place is.
Yeah.
It's fucking hard.
Yeah.
Right? It's a culture shock. If you're a new apprentice and you come into this and you're up out the door at 5 a.m. and it's fucking freezing out
Outside
or it's
in
hot
the
out.
wintertime,
I'm getting my balls broken by someone, you know what I mean? And, and it's hard work. It's not real easy.
It's dangerous too sometimes.
It is. It's very dangerous.
So what we need to do is we need to educate our members, and I think that's what we've been doing for the last almost 9 years now, right? And you get out there on the job site and you say, hey, look, if you end up in the emergency room, I want you to ask the doctor a few questions. Hey, doc, what are you prescribing me? How long am I going to be on it? Is it addicting? Is there anything else I can take? You say that to a doctor, and he's going to sit there and go, okay, I got an educated patient here that's aware of what's going on.
Dude, that point right there, right? Most members, when they're hurt and they're in the hospital, they can't advocate for themselves.
Right.
And that's why it's so important that our stewards and our foremen are with them next to them. And
they're the front lines.
Right.
They're the front lines.
Yeah, not some insurance person, because they're not asking those questions.
No.
We want those persons, the stewards and the foremen that got that training, that know to ask those questions because you told them to ask
And that's where modern assistance comes in again. Because they'll come in and they'll do a training just on that. For our stewards and for our foremen. You got a member on the job site, is he tired? Did he, or is he, you know what I mean?
You can tell when someone's off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look for the
You see a member that's struggling, and that's one of the greatest things that can happen in this local right now, right? I get a call from a foreman or a steward or one of the safety officers.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a little concerned about this guy.
Yeah.
I'll go out. I'll meet him, talk to him.
Yeah.
And we'll end up getting that guy off the job, getting him into treatment. I'd like to say around the 2-3 month mark. I like getting the guys right back to work. Because if you're at work, right, it's 10 hours out of the day that you don't have to worry about, right?
Yep.
If you're hooking up with a couple of guys in the sobriety group, maybe going to get dinner and hitting another meeting somewhere else, that's another 4 or 5. Now you're going home, you're getting 8 hours. So you're really struggling for 2 hours out of the day. You know what I'm saying? You're breaking your day down.
As opposed to 20.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, and then, not only that, but every member on that job site watches this guy come in. Sees him sleeping on a ladder.
Or he didn't come in today.
Not showering, not changing. He's wearing the same clothes all week. Da, 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 da. Now all of a sudden you see this kid come in and he's 2 months, 3 months sober.
Yep.
He's got a smile. He's brushing his teeth. He's combing his hair. He's changing his clothes and he's kicking ass at work.
Yeah.
And they're like, holy shit. Then you see the difference.
Yep.
I can tell you all day long.
Yeah. Yep.
But once you see it with your own eyes,
Yep.
it does something. And that's another thing I can't say enough about. And is the members in this local that don't have a problem.
Yep.
I've done some crazy stuff. I remember the first day that I came into you. You know, you got your glass door there. I'm sitting there waiting for you. And I was waiting for you. I'm a city kid. I'm a sneaky son of a bitch, right? And I remember waiting for you to pick up the phone. And once you picked up the phone, I snuck in and I go, hey, Lou, hey, right? And I'm like, hey, I need a bottle of Jameson. I'm going to raffle it off for the sobriety group tonight. And you just kind of looked at me like, right? And I was like, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Like, all right. And I walked out. But I needed to get permission to do that, right? Now, that sounds absolutely nuts, right? 10 minutes later, you text me going, hey, get your ass in here, right? Because this just doesn't sound right to me, right? And long story short, you know, when I explained it to you, I said, hey, look, there are a ton of members that are going to be at our union meeting tonight that don't have a problem with booze, right? They don't have a problem with booze. And we got members that do have a problem with booze. And booze has taken so much from these members. Let's give it to them members, you know, and we raffled it off. I think the first time I did it, we raised over $3,000. Now, the important part of that is one of the major problems I had, right, is like you get a guy into treatment, bang, bang, right? Now, all of a sudden, you can't put that guy back where he was living. He's living in you know, it's a dangerous spot. You put him back there, he's in trouble. He's going to be drunk within hours.
Yeah.
Right? It just is his environment. Long story short, so we went out and we vetted a bunch of sober houses. We've had a few members. Brian Gavin is one of them, right? He owns a couple sober houses, you know, and in the beginning, you know, he would scholarship these members. You know, I like, Brian, I don't have any money right now. This kid's hurt. And he goes, don't worry about it. He goes, don't worry about it. And he'd front these guys, you know, and then we get them back onto the job site. And now I got money in a 501c3 over at our credit union.
Yep.
So, like, when a guy needs a sober house, no problem.
Yep.
I go over and I'll pay 2 months in advance, bang. And
good stuff.
And then when that member gets back to work, he pays the sobriety group back. Real small money, $25 a week.
Yeah.
Pays it back.
It's great stuff.
It's amazing how it's taken off.
Yeah, we got more foremen, and the word's gotten out, you know, certainly across the job sites and across the local. There's always more work to do, but the word's got out. You know, foreman will call. He's got an apprentice he's got an apprentice on the job that he really likes, really respects. The kid's a killer. The kid's a great worker and a great kid to have on the job, and he's struggling. And the foreman wants to get him help. People are looking out for the kids now, and for the other people on the job, whether it's a steward or a foreman. They're calling down here. And let me talk to Jay Frasier. Jay, I need to get this kid some help. How do I do it?
And that's some of the things that we talk about on the job site. You know, when I get out there, I talk about booze, I talk about drugs, but I talk about mental health too a lot. And what it is everybody has a baseline, right? Everybody has a baseline. If Lou comes in every morning and he's cranky before he gets his morning coffee, right? Stay away from fucking Lou, you know, until after coffee, right?
You been talking to my wife?
Yeah. Right? She said, do the dishes. And long story short, right? So you got this baseline. So that's you. That's who you are, right? All of a sudden, if Luke comes in and he's happy every morning, there's something wrong, right? And now, great,
you have been talking to my wife, haven't you?
Right? We're fantastic. You're happy. But that's not who you are. Something's different. Right. And we spend more time with our tool partners than we do with our wives, our husbands, right? That's the truth. So it's up to our tool partner to watch our back and recognize the baseline. So if something's up, you need to be able to go up to your tool partner and say, hey, what the fuck? What's going on, man? You good? You know what I mean? Throw it right on them.
It's happening though too. You're doing a great job getting that out there.
Yeah.
You know, it really is happening. It needs to happen more, but it's happening.
Yeah.
We're getting there. You know.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I see how this group is growing.
Yeah.
You know, we got a Signal app, right? And some of the shit that gets said in that Signal app is off the hook. But it's also a
Keeps
way to
everybody
reach
connected.
everybody. You know, we got people working the third shift. We got people working the second shift. We got people working. There is someone always alive on that app. So if you're in a jam, hey, look, I'm thinking about getting high. I'm thinking about picking up a drink. You throw it in that app, and then all of a sudden you got 3 or 4 people that are willing to come and pick you up and go have a coffee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
great. Yeah. In the beginning, that was my phone was ringing constantly with that. Now it's kind of settling down, and they're leaning on each other.
Right.
And that was always been my goal, is to have something as solid as you possibly can. So when I walk out the door, my kids, their kids have something ready to go.
Yep.
So if they need it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they need it.
What it's a new year. What do you see next up for the sobriety group and for the work that you do every single day?
It's just about growing it.
Keep on,
You know
keep
what
on.
I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's members out there that are still a little bit nervous. You know, they don't want to admit. You know, and when I first got sober, you know, the old timers would tell you, "Hey, if you're not ready, go drink some more."
Right.
That's a different ball game today. You can't do that today because it's not a revolving door. You know, the stuff that's out there on the streets today will kill you.
Yeah.
You know, so you really gotta, you know, you just gotta hammer the message home, and you know.
Yeah. So what do you say to that apprentice or that journeyman or the tech that doesn't know anything about the sobriety group, that's struggling, regardless of what it is, whether it's drugs, alcohol, stress, mental health, that might be listening to this podcast but might not know anything about what you're doing? What do you say to that kid, or that person?
I like doing it in person. You know, in person's a huge thing. I'll get a member. He'll come in my office. We'll shut the door. You know, and I can tell by his facial expression. You know, and I'll listen to him very little, but I'll tell him everything about me. And when I describe the feelings that he's feeling at that very moment, all of a sudden something clicks, and he goes, "Oh, this guy actually knows what the fuck he's talking about."
Yeah.
You know, he knows I'm not full of shit.
Yep.
You can't bullshit an alkie or a drug addict. You can't. There is no.
Yeah.
You either you're real or you're not.
Yep.
And when I talk about the feelings that I can tell just by his body language and by his facial expression where he's at, he's hurting right now.
Yeah.
You know, and when I talk about how I felt when I was sitting in that chair at that point, you know, and he sees that he identifies with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's where it is. You know, that's it.
Can anybody show up to those meetings?
Absolutely.
When are they? I know they're Sunday mornings. What time are they?
10:30 to 12.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually funny. She hasn't been around. I hope she's all right. I kind of got a feeling that maybe she might have passed away. We had an old lady named Dot, you know, from the neighborhood. You know, and she strolled in one day, and you know, and she kept coming every Sunday, and she would come to our meeting because she could drop the F-bomb and no one would get offended.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was a 73-year-old old lady.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah.
Yeah, so Sunday mornings, 10:30 to 12?
10:30 to 12.
10:30 to 12. And we still do it in Wilmington?
We do a Thursday night meeting. Adam DiFilippo runs that meeting up
Adam's
there
great.
on Thursday. Adam's fantastic.
Thursdays.
Long-time sober guy. Yep.
Thursdays
That's
at
at
Wilmington
5:30 to 6:30 up there. And
21 Concord Street.
Yep.
So anybody can just show up anytime? They don't need a reservation. They don't need to call anybody. They can just show up if they're hurting and they just need someone to...
Absolutely.
Maybe they need a laugh. Maybe they need a hug.
Yep.
Maybe they need a good cry, whatever it is. They can come down here and...
we'll let you work the gong.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
It really
it's amazing
is,
work you guys are doing.
Thank
I know
you
it
for
takes
letting me. Look at you, and I can't give you enough praise. And I know you don't. I know you don't like to hear it, but I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now if you weren't in the position that you're in.
Well, we got a good team, Jay. You know that. We got a great team.
And
we all support each other.
I know we're getting ready to wrap this up. I can feel it. And but it's not just me, right? It's a whole. We got a business agent, a team of 10.
Yep.
You get a call from Dave O'Loughlin.
Yep.
right? You get a call from Jimmy Fleming, Richie.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I'm worried about this guy.
Mhm.
You know, everybody's
Yeah.
pulling in the same direction. It even falls down to the secretaries.
Yeah.
You know, you got Di, Kerry,
Yeah, yeah,
Kristen.
yeah.
You know, I'll get a call from one of them. Hey, so-and-so came in. He didn't look too good.
Mm.
You know, it's really a team of that.
Yeah.
All the way down to the janitors that set up our hall,
Yep.
and make the coffee for us, and
Yeah.
it's really a team.
got a
effort.
great
And
team.
This is,
Jay,
this is
doing an
one
awesome
hell of a
job.
team we got here.
Yeah, you're doing an awesome job, and I just want to thank you
Absolutely,
for all
man.
the hard work you do behind the scenes that people don't see late at night, early mornings for the members of Local 103.
Awesome, man.
You're
Awesome.
the best.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Love
being
you,
on the
man.
job, brother.
Yeah,
Love you.
absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff.